Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andre. I'm your booktuber, book talker, all of it, and I'm here to give you more book reviews. Although I have a video in progress talking about the first half of Wheel of Time. Thanks for the suggestion of a subscriber. Thank you so much. And I'm really keen to show you that, but for now, we'll review this book, which is Winter's Heart, the 9th book of Wheel of Time. Before we jump into all of that, don't forget, if you're new, subscribe, like the content, comment away which one of your Wheel of Time books is your favorite, and let's go. For the ones that don't know, Wheel of Time is a 14-book series written by Robert Jordan and then later on by Brandon Sanderson. And there's also a prequel, so a total of 15 books if you include it. And this is an epic fantasy series. It's considered a classic by many, and it's a bit old. It started in 1990 till the 2000s. This book, Winter's Heart, is the 9th book out of 14, and it seems like we're inching closer and closer to the end, and it's becoming epic as it goes. For me, this is a reread actually, because I've read this series. This is actually my favorite fantasy series, and I'm having this rediscovery of Wheel of Time because I'm finding that the reread brings you so much more, not only enjoyment, but also other parts that you didn't see on your first read. So it's been a crazy journey, but that's part of the review for this. For this book in specific, Winter's Heart was published in the 2000s, so year 2000, and the 9th book is smack on what the fans call the slog, which is a portion of the series where everything kind of slowed down and there wasn't much development in terms of plot or pacing, all of those. On Goodreads, this book has over 139,000 ratings, and it averages with a score of 3.97 out of 5. Now, 3.97 is actually quite low for Wheel of Time terms. There's only, I think, one other book that has below 4, and all the others are above it. And as we know on Goodreads, usually books that are above 4 means that they're good, and books below 4 means that they've been their quality is not as good. I mean, this is Goodreads, so sometimes it might not mean that, but this is just the general rule. But at the same time, after 9 books, for fans to be raving so much that the book still has a score so close to 4, it must have meant that it has some quality at least. But let's go into the review and find that out for ourselves. First, we gotta go through the synopsis, and as usual, there's a timestamp floating around for you to go to that time if you don't want to hear the synopsis, especially because, again, this is the 9th book, so there will be spoilers for the previous book so far. And if you don't want to hear anything, I'll give you that option. Otherwise, just stick around, then you'll be hearing me narrating it. Randolph Lord, the Dragon Reborn, is slowly succumbing to the taint that the Dark One has placed upon the Saidin, the male half of the true source. His Ashaman followers are also showing signs of the insanity that once devastated the world and brought the Age of Legends to an end. And as Rand falters, the shadow falls across a stricken land. In the city of Abuda, the Shan-Chan, blind to the folly of their cause, marshal their forces and continue their relentless assault. In Shayol Ghul, the Forsaken join together to destroy the dragon. Rand's only chance is to hazard the impossible and remove the taint from the site, but to do so, he must master a power from the Age of Legends that none have ever dared to risk. A power that can annihilate creation and bring an end to time itself. Okay, now with the synopsis out of the way, let's just refresh on some of the scores, not all, because otherwise you wouldn't see my face with the bunch of numbers that would show up. But we have at least the last 6 books or 7 books. But as you can see, most of the books have been able to maintain a score above 4 for me, aside from book number 7, which is A Crown of Swords, which just went a bit below with a 3.8 out of 5. And I mean, that score might have simply been because book 6 was so good that it kind of suffered, because then I was comparing it to book 6 maybe. But I mean, 3.8 is still a good score in my view. Anything above 2.5 is positive, and things close to 4 are pretty good. And besides, since the book 8 rose again to 4.2, it shows that at least the series has recovered a bit there. But let's start with the actual review of the book, starting with plot. I think this book is the first one where I see very contrasting plot lines, in the sense that there are some of them that are drawing so slowly and it seems that nothing really is happening, even though we spend several chapters with them. And I mean, this is might be a bit of a spoiler, but I think Perrin and Elaine are some of these cases. And I mean, I gotta admit that Perrin and Elaine were never some of my favorite characters. I always found them a bit boring, or their plot lines a bit meh. But I feel like in this book especially, there wasn't anything important happening with them. I mean, there was some parts that were important, but there wasn't any development in that importance, if that makes sense. And it's not that I don't understand. I completely understand their motivations and what they want to do and their fears, but I don't find them as appealing as Rand or Matt or Nynaeve's, all of those. And especially in the last third of the book, when we spend more time with the more active characters, then the plot just rises to epic proportions and things really escalate a lot. And I mean, the last few chapters, it happens all of it so fast, and that's also something that I will speak about later in the writing style category, but it really made my jaw drop with everything that was happening. And this was my second read. I knew what was going to happen, but still reading it and seeing all that action was just really good. And that's why I think that between the boring moments and the action-filled or the more exciting moments of the last third, the good moments overshadowed a bit the boring moments. And because of that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. And I think that for the category of characters, this is another book that shines in this category. Because like I said, we do not see much happening in terms of plot for the first 2/3 of the book, but that's because we spend so much time with the same characters, and therefore there's time to develop them and see them interact with the world around them, with the people around them. And so we see what makes them tick, and we can see what's happening inside their heads. And I mean, this book, we have Perrin, Elaine, Cadsuane all having their spotlight. And even when we think that we might not like where certain characters are going, I can still truly appreciate that journey that they're taking, because Robert Jordan wrote them so well that I can really appreciate them, even though I don't like them or I don't really find them as appealing. And that's really because Robert Jordan wrote them to a point where they do feel like real people and you feel like you're following people that you know. So for this category, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. World building is our next category, and this one is always a good one to reflect upon. And I find fascinating because Robert Jordan is able to develop and expand the world and the magic systems without ever breaking any rules. It's always engaging because we as the readers, we read the books and we think we know already everything there is to know about the magic system, and then the characters come and do something unexpected that still makes sense and fits brilliantly into the world. And okay, that in this book we don't actually get much of the magic system happening except for the prologue and the last third of the book, but still we have a lot of culture deepening, especially with the Shan-Chan, where we explore more about their culture and how they work and what they respect and what the traditions are, all of those things. And that's really important because then we start not hating them as much and trying to understand a bit why they do what they do. So I think it was very well done. And I truly can't wait to read more about the Shan-Chan and see how everything develops more, especially knowing now what I know. But I can't reveal because that would be a big spoiler, so I'll just stick with saying that for this category, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Now on to writing style, which is where things get a little bit more rough. The pacing of this book had some issues, I'm not going to deny that. We are truly into the slog. I mean, at the start, I personally wouldn't consider it slow, but if you don't enjoy those characters, I can totally imagine how it would be so drawing for you. I think this book had an appropriate pacing, but it really walked on that line between being just okay to being too slow. So it was a very fine line and it walked right on it. But then we have those last chapters and just wow. And everything was happening so fast. It was like one chapter and everything just happened and it was all like bow, 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 bow. It was a bit crazy. And the worst thing was that suddenly, there was like 2 pages left and that was the aftermath of that whole climax, and we get left with barely anything to read about. I think that was like a gigantic whiplash. Don't get me wrong, it was amazing, but still, I would have truly appreciated if we had, 20, 30 pages more of that aftermath and trying to really see what was the state of all the characters involved. It was still an amazing scene, don't get me wrong, I still found it brilliant, but yeah, the aftermath definitely needed some expanding. So for writing style, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. And lastly, we have enjoyment. Very drastic, my enjoyment at the start comparing to the end. At the start, it was okay. After all, it's full of time. I'm always a bit excited to read it, but it was still a bit hard to just keep reading and keep going through the slog. But once we hit that halfway mark and then we started speeding up toward the end of the book, my enjoyment was like spiking through the roof. And I was really keen to see what was going to happen. So I was reading really fast towards the end. And even though I knew everything that was going to happen, I was still gasping and being like, no way, this is happening. And it's like crazy, especially knowing now all the foreshadowing that was happening. It was really, really good. So averaging my enjoyment over the whole book, I would say it was a 4 out of 5. And so we reached the end of this review. Just a refresher, we have 4 for plot, 5 for character, 4 for world building, writing style, and enjoyment, which gives us a final score of 4.2 out of 5, just like book number 8. I was a bit conflicted with this score because I was really excited about some of these categories, and some of them were very close to a 5, between a 4 and a 5. So I would say that this is a 4.2, but approaching very close to a 4.4. If there was a 4.3, that would be it. But either way, I think this book has an epic plot moment and several very good character moments that deserve to be remembered, especially with some of these characters that are not always in the spotlight. And I think it's overall a good book. Of course, it was a bit slower, but if you don't mind that type of writing style or just slowing down a bit before picking back up, then you won't mind this book much. And in my opinion, this also marks a huge point in the whole story, in the whole series, and it actually marks the starting of the end. And I cannot wait to read it. But first, let me know what you think. Do you like this book, or do you think it's just super boring? Let me know down below, comment. And if you're new, don't forget, subscribe, like the content, and I'll be seeing you on Thursdays and Sundays, okay? I'll be seeing you soon. Good reads.